Although Guy said full of promises, he was secretly bitter in his heart. He can make smiles, and with the full help of Judge and the little humans, the achievement rate and output of his smile fruits are increasing at an astonishing rate. However, Dover asked him to imitate the legendary devil fruit a few days ago. It made Guy feel quite embarrassed, but he didn't dare to refuse. The reason is that the man-made devil fruit he makes are basically zone, even Paramecia can't make it. And what Dover ordered him to imitate was the legendary, Logia's top devil fruit, dark fruit. Guy has only seen dark fruit's illustrated book, and has not even seen the shadow of the real thing. How can one really make an imitation? Dover glanced at Guy, knowing that it would be unrealistic for him to create an imitation dark fruit in a short time. However, if there is a real thing, let Guy refer to it for reference. Maybe there is still such a possibility. Dover looked thinking. Not long ago, news came from Stussy, and it is said that there has been some news about dark fruit. 67-7 are clues to catch the wind, and the specific situation needs to be verified. Dover temporarily put the matter behind him, and then faintly ordered. Prepare 50 smiles, 80% of which are defective. Guy stunned when he heard the words. He didn't know what Mr. Joker wanted to taste smile so many times. Need to know. Over the past year, he has made more successful genuine smiles than inferior products. Moreover, after eating the inferior smile, not only cannot obtain the ability, but also may encounter unexpected harm. But Guy dare to talk too much, and prepares himself obediently. Guy doesn't know that the smiles he will choose are the gifts that Dover will give to Kaido. A year ago, Dover used the smile fruit to successfully lure Kaido into the bait, break into Wano Kuni, and obtain Seastone art. At the same time, Dover also acts as an intermediary, connecting Wano Kuni and world government transactions. Although Dover took the big head unceremoniously during the trade during this period, the remaining part, Kaido and Orochi, who were unknowing enough, was overjoyed. However, as the world situation changes sharply, Kaido, however, is no longer satisfied with the money he got from the world government. After having money, Kaido yearns for violence and powerful military power even more. Then, since 6 months ago, Kaido has called repeatedly to inquire about Dover Smile's progress. Dover would not tell the truth, until today. Dover felt that Kaido was about to lose patience, and after he had achieved the results he wanted, he let go. Smile has been initially successfully developed. Moreover, he will personally deliver things to Wano Kuni. Kaido was immediately overjoyed when he heard the words, and his previous doubts about Dover vanished in an instant. Holding the smile that Guy chose carefully and found out, most of which were inferior products, the corner of Dover's mouth couldn't help but evoke a sneer. If Kaido knows that the smile he has been looking forward to day after day and night, and so long for, is just a junk thing that Dover has finally picked out, I am afraid he will vomit blood directly. With a faint laugh in his heart, Dover immediately raised his sleeves and returned to Dressrosa below. One day later, Dover left Dressrosa in the eyes of the daughters reluctantly. Before going to Wano Kuni, he has to go to another place. Somewhere in New World, there is a moving island that cannot be reached by recording pointers. This island is named Zo, and it is a country that lives on giant elephants. The creatures living on it are also very peculiar. That is, the body is similar to human beings, but the whole body is a fur family with hair. This day, the central clearing of Zhao Island. Most of the fur clan gathered here. There are people with worry on their faces, but more of them are excitement and admiration. Their eyes are all looking at the two extraordinary figures in the middle. Oh. Come on, Duke and Yoran, you are the strongest king of the furry principality. Fart. Obviously the cat viper boss is stronger. What are you talking about? Duke Inulan is the king of the day in charge of the day. Huh. So what? The cat viper boss, or the master of the night, the king of the night. The two sides refused to give up to each other, and the content of the dispute seemed to be the Inulan and cat viper who were nervously confronting each other. Wow. Master Yoran and Master Cat Viper are the strongest. Let's shake hands and make peace. In the crowd, there was still a very uncoordinated voice, but the weak voice was immediately drowned in the dispute with other members of the Fur Clan. Garlet lowered his head in frustration, but then pinned his hopes on Pedro, who was beside him, with a leopard head and a sword at his waist. Brother Pedro, go and persuade you two. With arms folded across his chest, Pedro, who was tall, shook his head helplessly. I can't get involved in the fight between the two adults. Pedro was right. Although his strength is good, he even broke through the ant pirate group. But compared to the two of the 9 Knights of the Scarlet Cloud, the dog Tan Lan and the cat Viper, who can rival Jack the Drow, one of the 3 plagues, are still far behind. Hearing this, Garrett could only look worried and helpless. On the field, the dog-headed Inu Lan and the cat-headed cat Viper stared at each other fiercely. Cat Viper. Dog Lanhan said, "Now it's daytime, you broke into Laozi's country without authorization, do you want to fight?" Cat Viper held his pipe and sneered. "What is your country?" "Inulan, in another half an hour, this is my place." Inu Lan and Cat Viper, although they were once the 9 warriors of the Red Sky, they are Kozuki Oden's retainers. However, after Kozuki Oden's death, the two quickly turned away due to their disagreements. Even though they are in Zuowu, they are divided into 2 countries, day and night, each in charge. Asshole. Inuarashi was irritated by the brutality of the cat Viper. He slowly pulled out the western sword from his waist. The cat Vipers also took out their weapons, tit for tat. When necessary, the atmosphere on the court becomes extremely urgent. The surrounding vegetation, the trembling, seemed to be forced by the aura of the 2 powerful men, and felt scared. Very awesome. You can do this just by aura, you really deserve to be Lord Inulan and the boss of the cat Viper. If only one day, I can be as strong as 2 adults. Even Garlet, who was still full of worries just now, was attracted by the powerful aura of Inuarashi and cat Viper at this time. As for Pedro, he involuntarily clenched the hilt of the sword at his waist. In Pedro's heart, there is a shame that he will never forget. That is, the experience of Wang Guo in the territory of the 4 emperors. If I can have the strength of 2 bosses at that time, I don't need to beg for mercy from that ugly old woman, and I will be drawn 50 years of life. Pedro thought unwillingly. Even though he is still in his prime, in fact, he has not many years to live. Just as the confrontation between Inu Lan and cat Viper became more and more fierce, the aura of both sides also rose to the climax, when the battle was about to come. Without warning, a faint voice suddenly came down from the sky. So lively. Xiao Xiao ha ha ha, it seems that I am here at the right time. The moment they heard this sound, the Fur tribe's first reaction was to be astonished at the source of the sound. To know. Zuowu, located on the main back of Elephant 4.6, is 10,000 meters above the sky. Clouds are floating around, and besides the vast universe, how can there be anyone above your head? All the Fur people, including Pedro, subconsciously raised their heads and looked towards the sky. The moment I saw a strange, but let everyone see, a magnificent figure that was inexplicably panicked, slowly drifting down from the dome at infinity. With sword eyes and star eyebrows, his expression is indifferent, standing with his hands holding his hands, his eyes are dreadful, and people dare not look at him. At the moment when his figure appeared, the powerful aura formed by the combination of Inagong and cat Viper was like a snowflake touching a flame, and it melted instantly. And the vegetation on Zhao Island suddenly seemed to die, and fell silent. The air seems to be stagnant. Inu Lan and cat Viper realized that something was wrong, and immediately stopped and raised their heads at the same time. When he saw the top of the sky, the figure of the man who seemed to be in the center of heaven and earth, his expression suddenly changed, and he said in amazement, "Shicibukai, the dark middleman joker who colluded with Kaido, why are you here?" Inu Lan and cat Viper were shocked at first, followed by fierce expressions on their faces. Although the two had a very bad relationship after Kozuki Oden's death. But when it comes to the enemies of the old master, they still can't help stand together and share the same enemy. And the reason why they knew that Dover and Kaido were in collusion was because a message from a mysterious person in Wano-kuni told the two of them more than a year ago. The news also said that Kozuki Oden's daughter, Kozuki Hyori, seemed to have been taken away by this man. Dover felt a little surprised when he heard the words of Inuarashi and cat Viper. Few people outside know about him and Kaido, let alone Zou, who is far away from the world. It seems that someone inside Wano-kuni secretly passed on the news. But Dover didn't care much either. The person who passed the news was just the former Kozuki Oden department. Dover's cuffs were slightly wavy, and a thin shadow swept toward the two people below. Inuarashi and cat Viper were shocked. From the unknown source, he also learned that the man in front of him is far from ordinary Shicibukai. When they first arrived at the Ghost Island, they had a hard fight with their greatest enemy, four emperors Kaido, and they didn't seem to lose the wind at all. And the power from the moment he appeared just now is even more powerful than this person, and it is definitely of the four emperors level. Even though Inu Lan and Cat Viper are not weak in strength, where are they really so arrogant that they can rival the four emperors? Therefore, in the face of Dover's understatement and flying towards them, the cold hair of Inu Lan and Cat Viper stood upside down. On the other end, after Pedro saw Dover's figure, the muscles of his whole body were already tense, his fists were tightly clenched, and bloodshot eyes appeared to appear in the leopard's pupils. He has been abused by the four emperors and, so he is more sensitive to the breath of the four emperors class powerhouse. This sensitivity, in fact, is a kind of fear carved into the bone. Brother Pedro. Garrett beside him, seeing the always strong and calm brother Pedro, his body was trembling slightly at this time, and he couldn't help but call out anxiously. Garlet's voice suddenly awakened Pedro from the nightmare. He took a deep breath, pulled out the long sword around his waist, and said with a solemn expression like never before. Garlet, later, if there is a fight, you will run away desperately. What? Garlet was stunned. Judging from the expressions of Lord Inulan and Cat Viper boss, Garrett also knew that the man in the sky might be a bad person. But in any case, the other party is just one person, and they have hundreds of people. What's more, the fur race itself is the war beast race, and the strength of each individual is not weak. And at the time of the full moon, it will evolve into the form of a moon lion, and its strength will skyrocket. That's it. When they face a mere person, do they still need to flee desperately? Seeing that Garrett didn't seem to understand, Pedro sighed and said, You have been in Zuowu and have never been to the outside world. I don't know how powerful the four emperors level is. It is not surprising, but... Pedro's tone was full of unprecedented solemnity. Garlet, you must remember that facing a four emperors class powerhouse, even if the Fur clan has a population that is several times larger, it is not the enemy of the opponent. This remark was extremely heavy, and it caused a terrible storm in Garlet's heart. She couldn't help raising her head, staring blankly at the man standing with her hands in the air. Is there really such a terrible person in the world? Isn't even the Fur clan that is several times more than an opponent at all? Just as Garlet was in extreme shock, Pedro suddenly shouted. Not good. Lifting the sword rushed in the direction of Inuarashi and Cat Viper. It turned out that Pedro also saw the shadow of Dover. Although she couldn't see the power of Dover's move. But he has no doubt that the random blow of the four emperors level powerhouse is probably not the Duke Inulan and the boss of the Cat Viper. It can be safe and sound. Inu Lan and Cat Viper naturally understand this truth too. The two know the power of the four emperors Kaido, and the man who can stand alone with Kaido without losing the wind is terrifying, one can imagine. Inu Lan and Cat Viper, at the same time, gather their luck and work 100 times more energy, ready to use their strongest moves to deal with the opponent's seemingly random blow. However, just when Pedro was very anxious, afraid that he would not have time to help. Just when Inuarashi and Cat Viper tried their best to make their own powerful moves. Just when Garlet and all members of the Fur clan raised their throats in their hearts. In the air, the man who seemed to be standing in the center of the sky suddenly heard a faint voice. Don't be so nervous, just a letter. As soon as the faint voice came to my ears, Inu Lan, Cat Viper, Pedro, everyone was stunned, and the movements of their hands also subconsciously stopped. Is it a letter? They couldn't help but focus on the thin shadow that was so close to them. Looking at it, isn't it just a simple letter? Ha 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 ha, it turned out to be just a letter, which is great. Someone sat down on the ground like a collapse. Just now, the heavy atmosphere that the air is about to freeze makes his heart seem to be pressing on a mountain. Many members of the Fur tribe are also relieved like this one. As for Inuarashi, Cat Viper and Pedro in the center, they looked at each other and couldn't help but smile wryly. The other party just handed over a letter, and he was so nervous. The three of them also realized that the shirts behind their backs were all soaked in cold sweat. After the three of Inulan smiled bitterly, they couldn't help being silent. The power of the four emperors level powerhouse is really amazing. Even if it was just a non-aggressive wave, the three of them dared not to be negligent. If this continues, when can we avenge the four emperors Kaido? The three of them couldn't help being extremely heavy, but at this time they still did not dare to relax their vigilance. Inu Lan took the letter and looked at it with Cat Viper and Pedro. The next moment, the three of them were shocked. In his eyes, there was an incredible look at the same time. There is also an indescribable color of ecstasy. It was like an instant, from hell to heaven. Even the cat vipers in Inu land couldn't help but tremble with excitement. At this time, a unique mark of the Kozuki clan. This is a letter written by Miss Hiwa. There can be no mistake, it turned out that the letter from Dover. It was given by Riwa when he left Wano-kuni. The purpose of Dover's visit to Zhao this time is naturally to conquer the fur family, and to give a great boost to Japan in the near future in his work in Wano-kuni. Things seem to be very clear. The terrible man in front of him didn't really collude with Kaido. Its real purpose is to overthrow Kaido. The three of Inu land couldn't hide the ecstasy and excitement in their hearts. With such a strong helping out, the possibility of success in the future defeat of Kaido is undoubtedly greatly increased. This kind of ecstasy, let Inu land, Cat Viper, and Pedro be there, in the unknown and shocked eyes of the fur tribe, directly to Dover in the air, bowed on one knee. Meeting your lord, please forgive the next few people. I didn't know Taishan just now, which offended my lord. Next. Everything is simple. Under the instructions of the three of Anyoran, the fur clan turned good and bad into joy, and they all regarded Dover as the most distinguished guest. As for going to Wano-kuni to help out and overthrow Kaido in the future, everyone is excited. Garlet patted his chest, his little rabbit-like face, and smiled again. The man who made her feel completely incapable of feeling bad in the first place was not an enemy of the fur clan, but a friend of Miss Hiwa. It was a great result. Dover did not stay in Zhao for too long. He took Inuarashi, Cat Viper, Pedro, and all the adult combat power of the fur clan, and went to Wano-kuni together. However, just before leaving, a voice that made Dover also feel extremely surprised, suddenly rang in his ears. Please bring me, I have been waiting for the master for thousands of years. The sound was dull and remote, as if it came from a remote savage era, full of incomparably ancient meaning. Dover's gaze couldn't help but glance down, the behemoth that could barely see the end. The voice just now was not made by the elephant master who carried the entire Zhao island, but which one? Seeing Dover suddenly stopped, and seeing Master Dover's gaze, he suddenly looked at the Lord Elephant underground. Inu Lan, Cat Viper and others couldn't help but shook again, with incredible surprises in their eyes. Master Dover, I heard the voice of the Lord Elephant. This is something that only Lord Kozuki Oden and the former One Piece King Dear D. Roger have done. Suddenly, the fur people who followed Dover couldn't help but have an urge to worship Dover. The Elephant Lord, Dover, was also surprised. Immediately afterwards, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Although I don't know what kind of mystery the Lord Elephant possesses, the destructive power of the Lord Elephant's unique huge size is more than 100 times that of Jack the Drow. With such a behemoth, Wano-kuni's future, already foreseeable, will surely fall into Dover's pocket. Wano-kuni. General House. Over the past year or so, the atmosphere in the general's mansion has been extremely depressing. Every servant was trembling all day long and couldn't sleep at night, for fear that it would make the adult unhappy, be beaten badly, and lose his life in the worst case. This is not alarmist. Over the past year or so, the general's mansion has been killed by General Orochi because of some small mistakes, or even unprovoked reasons that cannot be called mistakes, at least hundreds of people. One can imagine how the servants of the general's mansion were frightened. As for why General Orochi is more cruel and irritable than ever, everyone in the general's mansion also knows. That's because the general's favorite woman is also Wano-kuni's most beautiful woman, Xiao Zi. Since the grand banquet more than a year ago, she has never been to the general's mansion again. Ah, little purple, my little purple, in the sleeping hall of the big snake. There will be such a stern and angry roar every day, accompanied by a sound of crackling and breaking things. The guards waiting outside the hall were trembling and listening with pale faces. The voices inside the hall lasted for several hours. The big snake finally finished venting, a sickly flush on his face. However, the pain and deep-seated hatred in Da Snake's heart never diminished a bit. Joker, one day, I will kill you. I will kill you. The moment the snake lowered its head, a whisper of ultimate resentment rolled out of the snake's throat. Such vicious words are also cursed by the serpent every day. Because, it was the man who took away Xiao Zi who should have belonged to him. However, even if the snake hates him deeply, he does not even dare to curse loudly, let alone let others hear it. It is because that man has brought huge wealth and arms to Wano-kuni over the past year. In particular, I heard that even the smile fruit has been successfully developed recently. This makes the backer of Orochi, Kaido, that guy ecstatically can't sleep all day, and warns him repeatedly that he must not go to the Joker woman again, otherwise he may not be spared. Therefore, Orochi can only bury his hatred towards Joker deeply. With that, he even hated Kaido. This is the root cause that the snake is becoming more and more perverted and crazy this year. But Orochi thought he cursed Joker, no one knew. But he didn't know that in the corner outside his bedroom, there was a figure hidden in the darkness with a mocking smile on his face. His face is long and narrow, his hairstyle looks like a single horn, and he carries a samurai sword on his back. The true identity of Kuang Shi Lang is actually Chuanjuru, one of Kozuki Oden's vassals and one of the Scarlet Knights. After Oden's death, his appearance changed drastically and he became the boss of the gangster, and then became the guard next to Oden. While collecting evidence of Oden's crimes, he secretly protected Miss Hai and the alias Xiaozi. Naturally, Denjiro had already known the true relationship between Qiwuhai and that man. When he heard the persistent and brutal serpent, he clearly hated the man, but didn't even dare to curse loudly. The ironic smile on Chuanjiro's mouth could not help but expand. At the same time, on the island of ghosts, Baiju Kaido is in a better mood today than ever before. He has drunk hundreds of bowls of wine in a row. Ha ha ha. Kaido drank a large bowl of wine again and drank it in one gulp. After a burp, he burst into laughter. Joker. Joker. You are finally here, lousy, can't wait any longer. Original. Today is Dover, after more than a year, again Kun is coming to Wano Kuni. Moreover, it will also bring as many smile fruits as it is said to be as many as 20. No wonder Kaido is so happy. Hey hey. Quinn, who was holding his mustache, saw that Kaido's boss seemed a little uncomfortable, so he said to the next one. Hurry up and look outside the country. Has Lord Joker arrived? Yes. Xiao I didn't dare to neglect, so he turned around and ran away. Queen, on the side, the black-masked Jhin with wings on his back said. If that adult wants to come, he won't be able to find out with the rubbish. Quinn sneered at Jhin and sneered in his heart. Of course he knows this truth. The command just now was clearly shown to Boss Kaido on purpose, so he came to please Boss Kaido. Jhin, sooner or later, I will take your place and become the first person under Kaido boss. Quinn thought triumphantly, but didn't bother to pay attention to Jhin on his face, patted Jack on the shoulder on the other side, and smiled. Jack, smile can be developed successfully, you are also indispensable. Punk Hazard, which is indispensable for the development of smile, was originally Jack, who took the initiative to ask for it regardless of the danger. Although Jack was only beaten unilaterally in the battle with Kizaru, he still held the opponent for a period of time, which is considered a great contribution. Jack puffed up his chest when he heard the words, but he said in a rare humility. I should do it all. If the two elder brothers go, they will definitely do better than the younger brother. Although Jack is a reckless man, he respects Quinn and Jhin. Just when Quinn wanted to say something more, suddenly, an inexplicable and depressed power seemed to be pressing on everyone's hearts from afar away. Quinn's face changed, and he looked up in the direction of the Flower City. Jhin and Jack also had solemn expressions, looking in the same direction as Quinn. I saw that in the sky above the Flower City, there was a figure that even they couldn't look directly at, descending majestically. The clouds and mist all over his body, like a god descending to the earth, stepping on the top of the cloud, making it impossible for people to see his true face in the surrounding situation. But only with the repressive conqueror's haki, which seems to be more tyrannical than a year ago, and even the boss of Kaido didn't have it, the Quinn trio knew who that person was. Boom. There was a loud noise of cracking the porcelain bowl. Kaido smashed the wine bowl and suddenly stood up from his seat, laughing wildly. Joker, you are finally here. In the next second, Kaido eagerly ordered the following people. Hurry up, send someone to invite Joker over. And the closer the Flower City General Mansion, naturally, earlier and more clearly realized the sudden and powerful pressure. Hidden in the sleeping hall, the serpent that was cursing Dover secretly, violently beat a spirit, and the ugly square face subconsciously revealed a look of horror. He felt that breath. That is definitely the breath of Joker. But thinking that the enemy he hated to the bone had come to Wano Kuni, Da Snake couldn't think of revenge. He couldn't help trembling and shaking, for fear that the curse just now would be heard by that terrible man. Outside the temple, Denjiro also trembled slightly, but he was not as frightened as the Orochi, but a surprise, an incomparable surprise. Denjiro looked at the sky in awe, the figure that couldn't be seen at all, and the meaning of worship came into his heart. A man with such a terrifying power, even his old master, Kozuki Oden, can't do it. Above the sky, the one who is surrounded by clouds is Dover. He didn't intend to care about his arrival, whether anyone in Wano-kuni was happy or feared. With a wave of his big hand, he took all the fur people and landed at Xiao Zi's residence at an incredible speed, Wang Jiao Jiao, which was also a luxurious manner with his name. As soon as the figure fell, he felt his breath, and he couldn't help but ran out of joy. The more rounded and graceful little purple, like a swallow returning home, threw himself into his arms. Dover lightly stroked Xiao Zi's long, smooth and beautiful hair, while scanning the situation in the manor. There were a lot more people in the manor than when he left. These people, who have been gathered by Xiao Zi for more than a year, are still loyal to the Kozuki clan. However, in the crowd, Dover also saw a slim figure that surprised him. The man was wearing a prajna mask, and a mace similar to Kaido was hung around his waist. The firstborn, with a small red special horn, wearing a white kimono, a lanyard is casually tied to the slender waist. Judging from the curvilinear and bumpy posture, it is obviously a woman, but she is much taller than the average woman. The moment his person saw Dover, the big eyes hidden under the mask seemed to be ecstatic, even more intensely excited than Xiao Zi. This woman is not Kaido's daughter Yamato. Who is she? Yamato's heart at this time was indescribably excited. She looked not far ahead. The man who fell from the sky was surging with Haki, who seemed to be more majestic than a year ago. His heart seemed to be tightly bound by a big hand. Yamato used to worship Kozuki Oden. However, her adoration of Kozuki Oden is basically the brain supplement from her logbook, and she has never actually seen Oden. However, the worship of the man in front of him is different. When Yamato saw Dover for the first time more than a year ago, he was shocked and heartbroken for the other party's strong and decisive attitude that even overwhelmed his own old man. As a result, she almost subconsciously changed her admiration from Kozuki Oden to Dover. Even after Yamato left Wano-kuni at Dover, he wanted to go out to sea and take an adventure with him. Unfortunately, Kaido was stopped by an angry Kaido. As a last resort, Yamato came to this manor. In Yamato I want to come. All places in Wano-kuni. There is only this manor where that man lived, which is the closest to Dover. In this manor, Yamato met Xiao Zi. I learned that Xiao Zi turned out to be Kozuki Oden's daughter, Kozuki Hyori. And, it's still that man's woman. When Yamato knew that Xiao Zi, and the man she admired, secretly wanted to overthrow the old man's rule and save Wano-kuni, Yamato was not only not angry, but overjoyed. She has also been dissatisfied with her old man's brutal rule for a long time. Aside from anything else, Yamato joined Xiao Zi's camp, and became good best friends with Xiao Zi. Inside and outside the manor, there are now so many old Kozuki clan members. In addition to Xiao Zi's own identity, 680 Yamato is also indispensable. Otherwise, if you contact too many old ministries, Kaido and Osha will inevitably find clues. With Yamato covering up, there is nothing wrong. Knowing the reason for this, Dover couldn't help feeling a little bit ridiculous. He glanced at the extremely tall stature, and he knew that it was Kaido's daughter Yamato by just looking at the horns on his head. Yamato seemed to suddenly see the object of worship he thought about day and night, but he was so emotional that he couldn't say anything for a while. Dover couldn't help but sigh. This woman is really a filial daughter. Kaido has such a daughter who is totally not with him, how can he not fail? Dover now has 100% control over the future master Wano-kuni. Beside, Xiao Zi stuck to Dover for a while, then stood up from Dover's arms. After all, she is now the matriarch of the Kozuki clan, and in front of so many Kozuki clan's old tribes, she must also maintain her patriarch's tolerance. However, Xiao Zi was still a little bit narrow, looking back and forth between Dover and Yamato. She actually never believed that Yamato really helped herself because of the so-called worship. In Xiao Zi's view, it must be Yamato who is infatuated with the man in front of him. Just like him, he will not hesitate to betray his father. This man has such charm. What are the benefits? I have to go to you. Xiao Zime's eyes were watery, and she bit her bright, lustrous red lips slightly, and she had some groaning thoughts in her heart. But at this time, she naturally wouldn't play her daughter's petty temper with Dover. If she wanted to play, she would play at night. At the moment, Xiao Zi met with everyone from the fur tribe, including Inu Lan and Cat Viper, who almost cried with joy. Sighing and reminiscing about the past, I sighed at Odin's death. We must fight that bastard from Kaido. There is also the villain, Odin, who deceived Lord Odin and turned Wano Kuni into the hell it is today. We have been waiting for 15 years and can't wait any longer. The crowd is angry. The retainers of the Kozuki clan were all furious, and seemed to be looking for Kaido and Orochi to settle accounts now. In the past, they chose to be patient. On the one hand, there is no one like Xiao Zi who is a descendant of the Kozuki clan to organize them. On the other hand, it is because the former mistress of the Kozuki clan, Kozuki, used the power of time and fruit to send a branch house minister 20 years later. When Odin was dying, he predicted that the best time to attack Kaido would be 20 years later. But at the moment, these are not important anymore. Because, they have the help of the man who is the top man who can hardly look directly at him. The stalwart figure that his man confronted Kaido more than a year ago has already deeply penetrated the hearts of the Kozuki clan and all his retainers. To say that Xiao Zi is the backbone of the connection between them. That Dover is to make them completely determined to defeat Kaido in advance. Seeing everyone seem to be unable to wait any longer, Xiao Zi said softly. Calm down everyone, now is not the best time to beg Kaido. But please believe me, that day will never be far away. Although Xiao Zi is a daughter, she deserves to be the matriarch of the Kozuki clan in such a short period of time. With a few words, the retainers calmed down and were extremely convinced. When Inu Lan and Cat Viper saw this, they looked at each other and nodded secretly at the same time. Although Lord Odin still has a son, he will not appear until 5 years later. And, I'm afraid it's still the same kid as it was 20 years ago. If you want to come this way, it is better to let Ms. Rihei lead the Kozuki clan. Dover is also very satisfied with Xiao Zi's contingency measures. He also noticed that Inulan and other fur clan members also agreed that Xiao Zi became the patriarch of the Kozuki clan. In this way, Kaido and Osnake will be overthrown in the future, and Xiao Zi will become Wanakuna's new general. At this time, suddenly a respectful and awe-inspiring shout came from outside the door. Master Joker, Boss Kaido, please go to the Ghost Island. When Dover heard this, the corner of his mouth ticked. It seems that Kaido really can't wait any longer. Kaido can't wait to invite him to the Island of Ghosts. Besides the smile fruit in Dover's hands, what else is there for? Now. Dover simply spoke to Xiao Zi and the others, and his figure disappeared in place. Yamato was taken aback when he saw this, and finally recovered from the surging of seeing the idol. I couldn't help feeling anxious, for fear that Dover would leave Wano Kuni again and quietly. Yamato hurriedly turned around and went to the Ghost Island. However, it was stopped by the smart little Z. The little purple-red lips were lightly pressed, beautiful and moving, and smiled. Sister, don't worry, our husband, Mr. Kun, will be back later. Xiao Zi was worried. If Yamato followed, he would show his feet in front of Kaido, but it would be bad. On the Island of Ghosts, the carnival continues. And because of the long-awaited smile fruit of Kaido boss that Joker is about to bring, the atmosphere is more enthusiastic than before. The cowardices are staggered, you push me in F*K, they all look ecstatic. However, the warm atmosphere progressed to halfway. An unpredictable and stalwart figure has come without warning, among the people. That is, all members of the Kaido pirate group were shocked. Joker is here. I can't see how he appeared. The speed is too fast. Even the 3 plagues were shocked in my heart. They just failed to react to Dover's speed. This man is stronger than a year ago. Jhin and Quinn were shocked. Generally speaking, those who reach the level of 4 emperors will not have much growth in their strength for decades. Because the strength of the 4 emperors level powerhouse itself is about to reach the apex of the world, and the space to rise is too small. But this law, for Dover, does not seem to apply. Kaido found this problem too, and couldn't help feeling a little bit amazed. A year ago, the man in front of him almost broke his thunderous 8 trigrams with that inexplicable move. And with the passage of time, its strength can continue to increase. Doesn't that mean that sooner or later, oneself will not be the opponent's opponent at all? Kaido's involuntary alarm bell made a big alarm, and Dover's fear of Dover grew deeper. Kaido and the 3 plagues didn't know it. In this year, as the power of the Don Quixote clan expanded, Dover received more and more system rewards. Coupled with Dover's previous experience with 4 emperors and admiral, his understanding of cultivation has taken a step forward. Adding the two together, Dover's strength has made considerable progress, which is naturally not surprising. Kaido strongly suppressed his fear of Dover, with a cordial smile on his face. "Joker, you can count it. Bring that thing, right?" Kaido is straight to the point, making no secret of his urgency. Dover flicked it with one hand. A box flew towards Kaido. Kaido hurriedly caught it carefully, opened it, and immediately showed ecstasy. "Ha ha ha ha. Bring so many smiles, Joker, you really have them." Kaido patted his chest to ensure. "I will definitely let Da Snake and give you more seastone technology." Earlier, although Dover had acquired the seastone craft, it was only part of the Wano Kuni seastone craft. After all, before he took out his smile, Kaido and Da Snake couldn't come up, so he sent out his old books. My fellows, seeing Boss Kaido so happy, they all booed up. "Look at it." When I look at it, everyone is stunned. I saw that the box was filled with dozens of strange fruits with strange shapes and spiral patterns, which was no different from the real devil fruit. It's too similar. If you didn't know it in advance, I can't believe this is a man-made devil fruit. That's it. As expected of Master Joker, everyone in Kaido Pirates, it was the first time that they saw so many devil fruits, and they were all excited. At this time, Dover said lightly, "Smile fruit is not easy to make, and the success rate is pitifully low. I can't guarantee how many qualified devil fruits there are." Kaido listened, but the smile on his face didn't decrease by half, he said impatiently. "Then let someone eat it first." Immediately, Kaido made a big move. Outside, more than 100 sturdy young people of all kinds came. Seeing Kaido and Dover, they immediately knelt down in fear. "Get up." Kaido waved impatiently. These people are the ones who have been trained by Kaido and tried to eat the fruits of smile. And once someone gains the ability, he will immediately be incorporated into the violent legion called Barbarian that Kaido has longed for. Dover glanced at the people who were about to eat smile. Among them, only a small part of them can obtain the devil fruit ability. The rest of the people will die because of the smile of the next product. At the moment, Kaido personally selected the strongest 50 among them, and distributed the smile fruits in the box to them one by one. The 50 people selected were all strong and mighty. Looking at the smile fruit in their hands, they couldn't help swallowing. Their expressions were extremely excited. They understand that once they acquire the devil fruit ability, they can be promoted to Kaido's boss and important cadre in an instant, and their status will be different from before. "Little ones." Kaido roared, and there was a frenetic color in his huge pupils. "Eat the fruits in your hands and gain stronger power." Oh. There was also a frenzy of cheers all around. The next moment, 50 strong men bite the smile fruit in their hands. Gudong, there was the sound of swallowing. Except for Dover, everyone's eyes were staring at the 50 people unblinkingly, wanting to know what the final result would be like. What? Soon, 2 people screamed. The whole body was bruised and fell to the ground with a thump, as if dead. However, Kaido and the people under his hands only glanced at the 2 of them, then immediately turned their attention to the rest of the people. Over time, more and more people are dying, and many people die in half-human and half-animal attitudes. Obviously, there is a problem with the acquired abilities. In the end, there were only 10 people who were still standing on the spot and 2 or 3 times stronger than they were just now. Well, although more than half of the people have failed, Kaido is still ecstatic after getting 10 barbarians who have successfully acquired abilities. He clenched his fists tightly, his muscles bulged like a hill, staring at the 10 people in front of him, as if he saw his future ambitions have been realized. "Joker." Kaido turned to Dover, unable to control his emotions, and shouted loudly. "Are there more smiles? I want more, more." In the face of a thunderous roar, even the 3 plagues are shrinking their necks. The mood of the boss Kaido is about to lose control, which is really scary. The plague Quinn was even more secretly worried. Because once the boss Kaido shows such an expression, he will never allow anyone to reject him. Otherwise, the endless anger of Kaido boss will surely usher in. Quinn couldn't help looking nervously at the man who was still drinking calmly. Dover didn't even look at Kaido. After drinking, he said slowly. "That won't work, Kaido. Making smiles can be time-consuming and expensive." Quinn's heart hit his throat instantly. They are all ready for the next moment. they will pull their legs away. Because he knows well that once the two existing in front of him have a conflict, if he stays on the scene, he will definitely be affected by Qiwuhai. After more than a year of money, when Dover and Kaido faced off for the first time, Quinn understood this truth. But what Quinn was worried about did not happen. Because Kaido has reacted, the object he is facing now is not the subordinates or little ghosts he usually kills, but the powerhouse of his level. Ha 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 ha. In that case, after beasts, pirates and Wano-kuni, give Joker your money and double it. What do you think? Kaido changed his face quickly. In order to get more smiles, he did not hesitate to double the money given to Dover. There is no reason for not accepting the benefits of giving it to your lips. Dover agreed, but also returned, and will definitely speed up the production of smiles in the future. Kaido was overjoyed and invited Dover to the evening banquet. Seeing the ecstasy on Kaido's face, Dover sneered in his heart. If Kaido knew that the smile he obtained was only a defective product selected by Dover, and Dover already had an army of nearly 1,000 people, would Kaido still laugh so happy? Night. An extremely grand banquet, as usual, was held at General Wanakuna's mansion. The big snake greeted Dover with a flattering smile. When I saw the beautiful woman who was nestled next to Dover, who was as beautiful as a peony, and eclipsed all the singers and all the villagers in the mansion as soon as she appeared, the charming smile on the face of the snake couldn't help but freeze. But the stagnation was only a moment, and the big snake smile was followed by more enthusiasm. The beautiful woman nestled in Dover's arms is naturally Xiao Zi. Coming to the general's mansion again after a lapse of more than a year, Xiao Zi's mentality has been very different from the past. In the past, when she came to the general's mansion, she had always been cautious and smiled for fear of revealing a little flaw. And now, not only does she no longer need to pretend, the once high General Wano-kuni, the snake, even looks at her face and bows to her. And all of this is because of the man who held his weak boneless waist. A banquet. Kaido is crazy. Dover was indifferent and let the beauty sitting on his lap deliver the wine to his mouth. And the real master here, the serpent, is like he is in hell, and his heart is bitten by thousands of poisonous insects. The woman who obviously should belong to her, she is in the lap of another man at this moment, but she still has to whisper to that man and keep ingratiating herself. This almost made the snake depressed, almost crazy. When the warm but weirder banquet was over, Dover and Xiao Zi came to the latter's wing. Xiao Zi suddenly left Dover, covering her red mouth, giggling. A few more times like this, I'm afraid he won't have to take revenge on the snake, he himself will die madly. Dover looked at the beauty's slim figure, charming eyes, bright smile, and fair face of Qiwuhai. He couldn't help but stretched out his hand and hugged the beauty's soft waist, which seemed to have no bones. Unexpectedly, the beautiful woman twisted her waist and escaped the man's big hand. Although Xiao Zi missed a man very much in her heart, there was one thing she had to take out beforehand. When Xiao Zi turned back, he actually took back 2 scabbards. One is as white as clouds, and the other is as dark as iron. Little Z whispered. This is what I brought from Master Bladesmith Fitch. It was originally my father's saber. The white one is called Tianyu Yuzhan, and the black one is called Pavilion Demon. Tianyu Yuzhan, known as a famous sword that can cut the sky. Yan Mo is even more known as the magic knife that can conquer hell. Both are one of the 21 jobs that belong to the big knife. The former Kozuki Oden relied on these 2 famous knives to use the Taoyuan 10 punches, which left indelible damage to the abdomen of Kaido, who is the top defensive force and claims to be indestructible. Of course, it was because of Kozuki Oden's own strength. But it is enough to prove that these 2 famous knives are extraordinary. Even with Dover's current strength, these 2 knives can bring him little help. Dover is also quite interested in these 2 knives. Especially, it is the sword of hell that is said to absorb Haki as a driving force and transform it into a powerful destructive power, Yan Mo. Xiao Zi also seemed to see that Dover was obviously more interested in Yan Mo. She smiled and handed Yan Mo to Dover. Just know you will like it better. The moment Dover took Yan Mo and pulled it out of the scabbard. Suddenly, a strange feeling surged into his heart. It was as if something in his body was sucked away by the knife in his hand. Buzzing. Yan Mo suddenly uttered a greedy sword cry, and the long and narrow silver blade trembled slightly. Xiao Zime's eyes widened. She had never seen such an abnormal appearance before Yan Mo. Yan Mo seems to be excited. 680 inches, Xiao Zi murmured in a low voice. Even if Yanmo was in her father's hands, she had never been so excited. However, Dover frowned. Although the haki absorbed by Yanmo was only a drop in the bucket for him. But Yanmo absorbed his haki on his own terms, but Dover couldn't allow it. Stop. Dover looked at Yanmo in his hand and spoke lightly. His eyes were indifferent, like a god on the 9 heavens, and his tone was beyond doubt. But the aura that suddenly exudes from his body is like a demon king from the polar abyss. Even if Yanmo can cut hell, under the envelope of this breath, he can't help turning the excited sword cry into a fearful wailing voice. Yanmo's long and narrow sword body also trembled more severely. And this time, it was because of fear. Xiao Zi, who has been clinging to this scene, couldn't help but sigh. Even the unconscious Yanmo, under the man's tolerance, would be afraid. Just a moment. In the original book, Zoro was full of fighting spirit and wanted to conquer, but he succumbed to Dover. Become extremely obedient, and no longer dared to absorb Dover, the new owner's haki without authorization. Seeing Janma surrender to him, Dover also wanted to try the power of Janma. He wrapped Xiao Zi's soft waist with one hand, and when he moved his figure, he came to the roof. At this time, it was late at night, and the night sky of Wano-kuni was as dark as ink, with no trace of light visible. Dover exalted the demons. Yanmo had completely surrendered to Dover, and Dover only had a thought, and Yanmo immediately began to absorb haki again. And this time, thanks to Dover's permission, the speed and quantity of Yanmo's absorption of haki are completely incomparable to the previous time. The unprecedented haki, far surpassing the previous owner Kozuki Oden, made Yanmo emit a bright sword beyond his control. Buzzing. In the void, it seems that there are countless swords, responding together. Xiao Zi, who was beside her, had already covered her open mouth at the moment. The incomparable strength of the man made her mind deeply agitated. At the same time, Xiao Zi didn't notice that under the house, behind a big tree, there was still a figure witnessing this scene. His stature is extremely tall, with uneven curves and a mace hanging from his waist. It is Kaido's daughter, Yamato. During the day, Yamato wanted to show his admiration to Dover, and wanted to follow him out on adventures. But when Dover went to the Ghost Island and Yamato wanted to follow, Xiao Zi stopped her and said to her, "Sister, don't worry, our husband, Mr. Kun, will be back later." The phrase, "our husband Mr. Kun," suddenly made Yamato, who has always been careless and self-proclaimed, flushed and his whole body became hot. Fortunately, she was wearing a prajna mask at that time, and Xiao Zi didn't notice her strangeness. But Yamato's heart is already in chaos. She didn't understand any relationship between men and women. When Xiao Zi said that, she thought that worship was love, and if she wanted to love a man, she would marry him as a wife. No matter how straightforward his character is, how can Yamato say such a thing? As a result, Yamato became shy. When Dover returned from the Ghost Island in the general mansion, she didn't even have the courage to show up. "I only dare to hide here at night, peeping at that man. Really too powerful." When she saw the man she was thinking of, finally appeared, and between gestures, making such a vision, Yamato's heart couldn't help beating violently. And the next moment, Yamato's delicate body trembled even more, completely sinking into it. The man, facing the bottomless dark night sky, lightly stroked. "Want that?" Extremely brilliant, shining to the extreme. The dazzling sword light flashed out from the tip of the sword named Yanmo. As soon as Jian Mongfu left the sword, he became as large as several tens of feet in a flash, like a huge crescent moon, rushing into the dark night sky. For an instant, the night sky was illuminated. The darkness of Rumo, like a heavy black coffin, was cut abruptly from the middle by the extremely bright sword light. And as the sword beam continued to rise, the range of being cut became larger and longer, and the distance became longer and longer. It wasn't until Jianmang sank into the unreachable universe that this tearing finally stopped. However, the brilliance that Jianmang passed by has not dissipated for a long time. As a result, a shocking scene that has never been seen before and can be recorded in the annals of history, appeared in the sky above Wano-kuni. "Hey! Look at the sky." In the territory of Wano-kuni, some people chatting outside, occasionally looked up, and JD was astonished as a wooden chicken. When the reaction came over, I was immediately so excited that I couldn't myself, and shouted to the family still in the house. "Come out. Look at the sky." "Huh." The family was puzzled and mumbled, "Wanakuna's nights are all dark, So what's so beautiful? No, it's not the same. Leave it alone, come out soon. The family had to come out reluctantly. When I looked up, it instantly turned into a stone sculpture. This is a miracle. The family screamed tremblingly. The same scene happened in various places in Wano-kuni. It didn't take long before most of the people of Wano-kuni ran out on the street, looking up at the sky, excited. A miracle. A miracle. God appeared. Some people even shouted hiss exhaustedly. We, Wano-kuni, can be saved. Because of the greed and violence of the big snake, most people in Wano-kuni live a life of hunger and hunger all day long. There is help. There is help. Please God save us and give us some food. The people knelt to the ground one after another, shouting piously and tremblingly. On the street, the sudden noise made the snake who was hiding in the dark room venting wildly, and the jealous and hatred at the banquet just now became even more angry. Noisy. What a noisy. Behead all those spooky people for lousy and kill them. The big snake was in the dark room, and the roar of anger made the whole dark room shocked. The soldiers guarding outside the door were trembling and stuttering. Master General, outside, there is a miracle outside. A miracle. The snake heard it, and became even more angry. He smashed the door angrily, and shouted at the soldier. What shit miracle? Is there a god in Wano-kuni? Yes, and only me, the snake. You gibberish guy. Das Snake was halfway through speaking, but was stunned. Because of the corner of his eye, he has already seen a corner of the sky. No way, the big snake looked up tremblingly. I saw that in the center of Wano-kuni's always dark night sky, there was a long Milky Way across it at this time. It was originally the brilliance left by the place where the sword light passed, and in the eyes of the unknowing snake and the people, it was like a bright Milky Way hanging above the night sky. This scene that Wano-kuni has never seen before is truly breathtaking. It's no wonder that the people of Wano-kuni, and even the soldiers of the general's mansion, regarded it as a miracle. But Das Snake has a broader knowledge. He seems to have thought of something, and almost subconsciously turned his gaze to a certain direction. There, it was the direction of Dover's manor. Seeing the beginning of the Milky Way, it was really there. The snake's calf weakened and his butt fell to the ground. The panic and anxiety in my heart reached the culmination at this moment. Is that man really a god? The big snake that fell to the ground had endless fear in his pupils. On the island of ghosts, Kaido, who had drunk too much at the dinner, was leaning on the seat in a daze. But suddenly, Kaido stood up abruptly. With the unique induction of the strong, he felt that Wano-kuni had just appeared an unusual aura. Kaido looked up, shaking his whole body. Kaido was the first time to perceive the extremely sharp danger of the shining galaxy hanging above the night sky. Is it Jianmeng? This length is too terrifying, right? The muscles on Kaido's face twitched slightly, and the X-shaped wound in his abdomen was also aching at this time. The man who left him this indelible wound used 2 famous knives. When Kaido saw that the origin of the swordlight was Dover's manor, he took a deep breath, but then slowly sat down, whispering that no one could hear, came out of his throat. Joker. If someone who knows Kaido enough, he will know when he hears Kaido's whispers. Kaido. This is clearly the name that was chanted to him, and the expression of fear to the extreme. On the roof of the manor, Dover was also quite satisfied with the power he wielded at will. This knife is not bad, I will accept it, Dover said with a chuckle to Xiao Zi beside him. And Xiao Zi, after seeing the miracle created by the man's casual wave, has been stunned for a long time. It wasn't until Dover talked to her that Xiao Zi reacted from the endless shock, but for a while she still couldn't fully recover. Is this really a demon? Xiao Zi's beautiful eyes looked at the sword in Dover's hand, and even wondered whether the famous sword she had just given out was Yanmo. Because, in her impression, even her father Kozuki Oden, using Yanmo, has never exerted such a great power. Xiao Zi stared at Yanmo in a daze. Zhao Chu Shuer was shocked again. The black one, Yanmo, turned into a black knife. Black knife. In pirate world, it is not just the color of the knife. The greater meaning of it is the ultimate of the sword, the highest level of the sword. Generally speaking, famous knives are ranked as good knives 50 work, great knives 20 work, and supreme great knives 12 work according to their rank and level. This is based on the manufacturing materials and forging process of famous knives. However, there is a kind of knife, even if the material and forging process are very poor, It can be continuously cultivated and evolved by the knife holder, and eventually it can even be on the top of the famous knife. That is the black knife. As long as the master's haki is strong enough, as long as the master's will is strong enough, any knife can become a black knife. As far as the world today is concerned, the only known black knives are the black knives used by the world's largest swordsman, Eagle-Eyed Dracul Mihawk, Knight. This knife is known as the strongest black knife in the world. In addition, there is the saber once used by Wano-kuni hero Ryoma, which was stolen by Moria who lost to Kaido many years ago, and Wano-kuni national treasure Chusui is also a black sword. All in all, black knives are extremely rare, even more rare than supreme knives. If any swordsman in Pirate World wants to defeat the world's largest swordsman Eagle-Eye, the first thing he needs to do is to cultivate his sword into a black sword. It's just this, it's too difficult, however. This was extremely difficult, and even Xiao Zi's father Kozuki Oden could not accomplish it, but 11 was easily accomplished by the man in front of him. In the little purple eyes, there is endless splendor and moisture. This man is so powerful that she can't help but be intoxicated. Below, Yamato, who has been looking up at Dover closely and admiringly, also noticed this. The adoration of Dover has reached an extreme point. The emotions of the two women are indescribable, but Dover is calm and calm. He put Yan Mo, who was promoted to a black sword, into the scabbard and hung it around his waist at will. He grabbed Xiao Zi's weak and boneless waist, and was about to return to the room again. Just leave the roof on the occasion. Looking down somewhere, Dover disappeared with Xiao Zi. Yamato's heart beats fiercely like never before. It was flushed like a sunset in the sky, and poured over her pretty face under her prajna mask. Just now, the man glanced at her, but her eyes matched his. He must have noticed himself. Yamato was almost dizzy with shyness. I am also a little worried. Will that man think that hiding in the dark is not bad for him? Yamato's head was dizzy, and he didn't know when he returned to his room. Dover did not stay in Wano-kuni for a few days. Because, Stussy, who has become his intelligence queen, came news. Dark fruit, there is a clue. This powerful Logia fruit is extremely important to Dover's plan to be implemented. He set off immediately and left Wano-kuni under the attachment of Xiao Zi. Looking at the man's stalwart back, Xiao Zi's big beautiful eyes were shining with tears, but Shuquan was wiped tightly. Last night, in addition to their tenderness and affection, the two naturally discussed their actions in Wano-kuni in the near future. Thinking of those plans, Xiao Zi's heart immediately became firm. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, turned around, restored the bearing of her new patriarch of the Kozuki clan, and gave orders. During this time, everyone should practice hard. The day when we take back Wano-kuni is not far away. Oh! There was a burst of exhilarating cheers. Xiao Zi went on to say to Inu Tanlin and Cat Viper who were standing in the forefront. Thanks to the two seniors, go to the Tushan Bandit and invite the leader Shu Tian Wan out there. Jushin Maru, the villain Ashura boy who used to run wild for 9 miles, became one of the 9 heroes of the Akasaka after being defeated by Oden. The strength is very powerful. Jack the Drow was injured in the original book. Even Kaido was unwilling to kill him easily because of his fancy. If you can accept Jushin Wan, it will be a great help for Xiao Zi. However, he is only loyal to Oden and ignores Xiao Zi, the old master's daughter. Inu Lan and Cat Viper nodded and left together. In the hearts of the two of them, they were actually curious. The news that passed from Wano-kuni to Zuo more than a year ago, whether it was Jutenmaru, an old guy who hadn't seen it for many years, passed it. In New World, there is a remote island that is extremely chaotic. This is a paradise for the wicked, an inaccessible place that even Marine can't reach. Here is one of the most important trading places in the Dark World. Inside, it is full of people from the outside world, an unimaginable variety and scarcity of various things, including weapons, slaves, resources, intelligence, and even assassination missions, etc. Even sometimes, devil fruit will appear. But how precious is devil fruit? Even if people get a piece of it by chance, they will eat it themselves, and won't trade it at all. After all, once the devil fruit ability is obtained, in this increasingly chaotic world, there will be support for life and safety. This is the fundamental thing. However, today, on this dark exchange, after more than 10 years, another devil fruit that was taken out for trading appeared. Moreover, look at the weird patterns and shapes of that devil fruit. It looks like one of the legendary and strongest Logia dark fruit. At once, the entire dark exchange was a sensation. Everyone had an extremely greedy look, staring at the short and thin man who took out the dark fruit. The short and thin man was named Polly. Being stared at by so many pirates, villains and robbers who are famous in New World, Polly can't help but shrink from his thin body, and feel a little flustered in his heart. In fact, he didn't know how precious the devil fruit he was holding was. Because he picked this devil fruit from his own apple tree. He thought it was a real devil fruit, and regarded it as an upgraded apple. However, Polly, who is greedy for money, wanted to use this to cheat a lot of money in the dark world, so he brought the upgraded apple to the dark exchange. But at this moment, seeing everyone being so unabashedly greedy for the upgraded apple in his hand, Polly regretted it. Only then did he wake up, and he had the real devil fruit in his hand. But it's too late to regret. Polly is sure that if he dared to repent and say not to sell, he would definitely be torn to pieces by the bastards present. In that case, Polly gritted his teeth and shouted in a sharp voice. This devil fruit, I sell 1 billion Baileys, whoever gives the money first, I will give it to whoever. Polly thought, since he couldn't eat this evil demon fruit, he would simply use it to make a bigger fortune. His sharp voice echoed in the dark exchange. For a long time, no one responded to Polly. The voice of sneer sounded from the surroundings. Ha 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 ha. Skinny monkey, do you still want to sell 1 billion Baileys? A big joke, with you. Lousy will not give you a penny, so what can you do? What an idiot. The value of dark fruit is far more than 1 billion Baileys. Even the op fruit, which once sold the highest price, may not be inferior to it. It is a sin for a weak person to own something like dark fruit. It is even more sinful to want to exchange it for money. Die, skinny monkey. Dark fruit belongs to Lousy. Go to hell. A sneered, ironic voice came into Polly's ears, his eyes widened, unbelievable. However, in the next second, his head was cut off by a bald man, and his body was also violently robbed of dark fruit by countless villains, and he was trampled into meatloaf. But the people who were all attracted to 680 by dark fruit did not notice that in the corner of the dark exchange, there was still a charming and beautiful petite beauty. The petite beauty is wearing a white coat on her upper body, her delicate and flowery Sakura peach mouth, her legs in long stockings and her legs are tilted up against each other, and she is drinking tea gracefully. With its charming eyes and attractive face, who is it if it's not Stussy? The reason why Stussy was drinking tea quietly did not grab dark fruit. On the one hand, although it is the Shanghai thief villains on the field, none of them are her opponents of the Queen of the Pleasure District and former CP0 member. But on the other hand, the bigger reason is that she is diagonally opposite, the man who sits closer to the corner than her, and exudes a sword-like eagle-like aura. Stussy seemed to be drinking tea elegantly, but in fact, his heart was already extremely vigilant. There is even a trace of anxiety, because she recognized that the man in black sitting in the corner and carrying a huge long sword is 7 warlords of the sea, Hakai Mihawk, who has maintained the title of the world's #1 swordsman for many years. How come this guy is here? Stussy secretly said unlucky. As a spy for the government for many years, Hakai naturally knows her well. This person is withdrawn and has always been alone. However, the strength is too strong. According to rumors, he even had red hair with the 4 emperors and fought against him many times. Stussy thought that dark fruit would surely be caught this time, and the man who subdued her overbearing would definitely reward her. Unexpectedly, such a tricky figure would be killed halfway through. I can't solve this guy. Stussy is very self-aware. If Hakai also intends to take dark fruit, she can't help it. Stussy lowered her head, and Sakura's peach mouth took a sip of tea again. A gleam of light flashed in her beautiful eyes. My dear Joker, you should come here quickly. The dark exchange. The competition for dark fruit is getting fiercer. Blood splattered, stumped limbs and broken arms, everywhere. Whenever someone gets the dark fruit and is about to eat it in ecstasy, the next second, a dark arrow from nowhere will be killed. More and more people are dead. In the dark exchange with hundreds of people, the number of people in the blink of an eye was reduced tenfold. The entire exchange seems to be stained blood. Those who are still alive are all hung on their bodies and panting, but the craziness in their eyes is not reduced by half. However, the remaining dozens of people are ultimately the strongest evil party, and there are many big pirates who are quite famous in New World. The fierce competition just now let them know that it is difficult for them to win dark fruit in the hands of many powerful people alone. Even if you are not careful, you will fall to the ground, in the footsteps of the cold corpses. The wicked parties unanimously stopped, each stepped back, and at the same time, their eyes turned, scanning the entire dark exchange, looking for possible alliances. The scene quieted strangely for a while. Only the dark fruit, which is covered with strange spiral patterns, is still in the center alone. Hey, Kura, it's been a long time. Gia, are you interested in joining forces? Ha ha ha, since Bia you said so, let's join hands. Everyone approached the other wicked parties that they had known, or even heard of, to engage in the above dialogue. But they are also very clear in their hearts that the so-called alliance is only short-lived, and once dark fruit is actually obtained, the two sides will immediately turn their faces. This is also commonplace in the dark world, so it's not surprising. However, there are also many people who have not found a suitable ally, so they can't help but retreat. After all, the power is weak, and the possibility of successfully capturing dark fruit is almost impossible, but it will kill you. But if he wanted to escape like this, he was extremely unwilling to do so anyway. Therefore, these people, with ghost ideas, wanted to hide temporarily in the dark, and when the contention was about to end, they jumped out again to see if they could miss it. This small group of people quietly retreated to the corner, trying their best to shape their figure. Suddenly, a slight scream came from the corner. Stussy smiled brightly and retracted her white fingers. Just now, there was a hapless guy who retreated to her corner and was easily killed by her with finger pistol. Regarding the fierce competition on the court, and even the so-called alliances of the remaining evil parties, Stussy actually didn't care about it. Even among those wicked parties, there are indeed a few that are quite strong. But compared to the guy in the other corner, it's not worth mentioning. The afterglow of Stussy's beautiful eyes has been secretly watching the eagle eyes in the corner. When I saw that there were also fools who did not live or die, and hid towards the eagle eye. Moreover, the person suddenly saw the eagle eye, and after a shock, he immediately screamed with a trembling voice. 7 warlords of the sea, Mihawk, the world's largest swordsman, Hawkeye. You are here. Do you want to capture dark fruit too? Stussy's red mouth was like Sakura's peach, and he immediately hooked it. The man's voice was so loud that the entire dark exchange could be heard. Stussy wanted to see what the Hawkeye would do. If the latter is really going to capture dark fruit, then Stuss can only pray that Joker will come as soon as possible. But if Hawkeye just happens to be here, not for dark fruit, then it will naturally be the best result. I saw Mihawk wearing a black top hat and a black coat with sharp eyes like an eagle, and glanced at the evil party in front of him who was screaming because of seeing him, from the mouth. There are too many stupid people whose eyes are covered by greed in this sea. But now that you have run into me, your stupidity will end here. As soon as the voice fell, I don't know when, Hawkeye's hand was already holding a pocket knife that was several inches long. Hawkeye just moved slightly, and the wicked party who had not had time to escape in front of him fell to the ground with a plop. After a long time, a very narrow scar appeared on his neck, which was not even as fast as Hawkeye's knife. Watching this scene, Stussy's beautiful eyes widened a little. Even she couldn't see clearly how Hawkeye made the knife just now. But in fact, at the moment the eagle eye shot the knife, the entire dark exchange flashed a glimmer of coldness. The wicked party on the court who was forming gangs with each other and showing false smiles on their faces also suddenly swept a touch of extreme coldness in their hearts. What's going on? The wicked parties couldn't help feeling a little panicked, and looked at each other suspiciously. Hey, did you hear someone's name just now? You heard it too. Is it Mihawk Hawkeye? Is that man here too? As these wicked parties were in panic exchanges, a clear and crisp footsteps slowly approached from the corner. Who? The wicked party hurriedly looked in the direction of the footsteps. It's really Hawkeye Mihawk. He is actually here. Now dark fruit is hard to grab. It's hard to grab, you have to grab it, that's one of Logia's strongest dark fruit. Seeing the eagle eye appeared, many people were subconsciously panicked. After all, although their strength is not weak, compared to the world's largest swordsman whose fame spreads across the sea, the gap is predictable. However, there are also some people who are unwilling to let go of dark fruit even when facing Hawkeye. Someone yelled. Even if it is the world's largest swordsman, Hawkeye. So many of us, are we still afraid of him? Everyone is a person with a name in the new world, and was scared by Hawkeye alone and fled. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? under the encouragement of some people with ulterior motives. Those who were initially frightened by the name of Hawkeye, once again appeared crazy and fierce in their eyes. No matter how strong Hawkeye is, it can't be an opponent to so many of us. Everyone, let's go together, first get rid of the Eagle Eye, and then decide the ownership of Dark Fruit. Okay. Just do it, facing the extremely powerful Hawkeye that suddenly appeared. Dozens of wicked parties who were pregnant with ghosts and killed each other suddenly stood together. They want to deal with Hawkeye together. Hawkeye, if you are acquainted, you can leave here as soon as possible. Dark Fruit, you don't have your share. The alliance has greatly increased the confidence of dozens of evil parties, and the hunter shouted with a smile. Hawkeye stopped about 10 meters away from the evil party. He looked as cold as a blade, looked at the dozens of wicked parties who had consistently targeted him, and sneered slightly. Alliance. Interesting, but there is no sign of retreating. If that's the case, don't blame us for bullying the less, you're welcome. No longer hesitating, dozens of wicked parties took action at the same time. One after another they resorted to their own skills, besieged the Eagle Eye from all directions. Hawkeye stood motionless on the spot, still holding the pocket knife in his hand, and didn't even use the black knife behind him at all. Damn it. Look down upon us so much. Eagle Eye, let you taste the price of underestimating us. The moves in his hands have become a bit fiercer, and the momentum of dozens of wicked parties' simultaneous attacks looks extremely vast. When the attack of the evil parties was about to hit the Eagle Eye finally moved. But few people can see the speed of Hawkeye's movement. He is like a sword that is invincible and uncut, moving straight forward. Boom boom boom. When his figure stopped, dozens of evil parties who had just been called weapons all fell. The ignorant weak, even if they are connected together, are not worth my black knife. Hawkeye retracted the pocket knife, and didn't even look at the evil party behind him who knew nothing about life or death. But Hawkeye looked in the direction of Stussy and said faintly, "If you want devil fruit too, if you don't come and get it, there will be no chance." Obviously, Hawkeye had also spotted Stussy long ago. Stussy smiled and walked out of the corner. Even though she saw Hawkeye's powerful swordsmanship again, her heart was not as nervous as before. Because the man she was thinking of, just now, finally arrived on this island. Chuck. Stussy smiled, covering her blushing lips, and said with a smile, "Dark fruit, we must get it. But Hawkeye, would a lone ranger like you also be interested in dark fruit?" Humph. Hawkeye was surprised that Stussy was not afraid of him, and glanced at dark fruit, which was not a few steps away from him, and snorted coldly. "I am not half interested in such things. However, it is a source of evil, and staying in the world will only bring more evil. Such things are the best to ruin." It turns out that the purpose of Hawkeye is to destroy dark fruit. But this is the case, it is reasonable. Because, with Eagle Eyes only respecting the personality of Kendo, you don't care about dark fruit. Now that I saw it, I just destroyed one of its swords. However, devil fruit is destroyed. Just like the death of a capable person, it will regenerate somewhere after a while. According to the original book, the next time this dark fruit appears, it will be in the territory of Whitebeard. Buddha howls ha ha ha. As soon as Hawkeye's voice fell, an inexplicable low laughter suddenly floated from the sky above the dark exchange. Destroy dark fruit? Hawkeye, this really fits your character. The laughter was still far away at first, but the next second was almost in my ears. With the keen perception of the world's #1 swordsman, Hawkeye was instantly alert, and his sharp eyes shot towards the hall above the dark exchange. The dark exchange hall, which has rare materials, strong structure, and can even withstand the shelling of marine warships, suddenly seemed to be carrying a majestic mountain on its back, and it made the overwhelmed sound of squeaky. Under the Eagle Eye's sharp eyes, the dark exchange hall immediately shattered. The sun's rays rushed in an instant. The golden sunlight shines on the stalwart figure suspended in the air, making it look like a god of heaven and inviolability. Ha ha. Like the figure of a god, he smiled low and said, "But I can't let you do that. Unprecedented changes in the world, the surging waves of the times, are right in front of my eyes. How can I let it be destroyed by you, Hawkeye?" The inexplicable words with deep meaning, the invisibly radiating aura of the world. Even Hawkeye can't help but shake the whole body. As for Stussy on the other side, seeing the man's stalwart figure and hearing the man's domineering words swallowing the world, in the beautiful eyes, the flashing splendor continued. You are really getting more and more infatuated, Master Joker. The visitor, who was not Dover from Wanokuni. Doflamingo, it turned out to be you. As the world's top swordsman, Hawkeye is extremely determined. He quickly calmed down his inner shock, and his yellow pupils mimicked like eagles. You are that woman, the reason you are no longer afraid of me suddenly, right? Stussy smiled sweetly at this moment. Oh, you discovered the tension just now. It's terrible. But if you just say it like this, it will make you faceless in front of the boss. Stussy twisted his waist and came to Dover's side. Master Joker, don't you blame me. Dover embraced Stussy's slender waist and smiled slightly at the coquettish performance of the exquisite woman. Taking Stussy to the ground, Dover bent his fingers and took the dark fruit not far from Hawkeye in his hand. Hawkeye's pupils shrank suddenly. Of the king's money. He actually didn't want dark fruit to be given to Dover. But just now, he didn't have time to stop him. Is it careless? No. It's the strength of this man, stronger than before. Hawkeye thinks that even in Shicibukai, there are only a handful, or even none, that can beat him. In his impression, although Doflamingo is deep-minded and powerful, it is not unmanageable. But at this moment, the feeling he was given to him was strange and unfathomable. The only thing Hawkeye can be sure of is Dover's strength, which is definitely different from the past. This is his instinct for the strong and instinct as a swordsman. Dover played with the dark fruit in his hand a few times, then put it away, looked at Hawkeye and chuckled. Mihawk, since the first Shichibukai meeting, we haven't seen it again. We won't meet again after a long time, so the atmosphere shouldn't be so tense. Hawkeye took a deep breath and suppressed the throbbing in his heart because of the man facing him, whose strength was beyond his expectation. As a swordsman, he must remain absolutely calm at all times. Hawkeye didn't say anything, he actually took off the black knife on his back yi. A wave of fierceness rose to the sky, tearing the clouds in the sky in an instant. Doflamingo, I can feel that your strength has become very strong. I have also heard the rumors about you in the dark world in recent years. But no matter what your purpose is, if you want to obtain dark fruit, you have to ask me this black knife in your hand. Black knife yi, known as the strongest knife in the world. Holding in the hands of the world's strongest swordsman, before he was out of the sheath, bursts of sharpness were in the air. Xiaofo, are you going to fight? It just so happened that I also got a good knife recently. Let's use it to try the power of the legendary Knight of Black Sword. Dover actually took out a knife. It was the pavilion demon Xiao Zi gave him. Gu. Doflamingo, use a knife too. Seeing Dover unexpectedly, he also took out a knife, and the eagle's eyes couldn't help humming slightly. He has never heard that the opponent is a swordsman. According to Hawkeye's intelligence, Doflamingo should be a string fruit capable person, and basically has never used swordsmanship. Is it because my strength has increased, so I'm underestimated? The sneer in Hawkeye's heart expanded even more. Even Dover didn't pay as much attention to Dover as before. Because a person who is so arrogant and ignorant can always only be a loser. Especially, if you dare to show his eagle eyes, the end is not just a failure. Behind him, those dozens of evil parties who don't know their life or death are living examples. Master Joker, even Stussy, there was a glimmer of stunner in her beautiful eyes. She had no idea that Master Joker would choose to use a sword against Hawkeye. The opponent is the world's largest swordsman, Hawkeye Mihawk. Lord Joker, did you choose the wrong tactic? But Stussy didn't rush to remind Dover. She was dexterous and guessed Master Joker should just use a sword to test the strength of Hawkeye. After a while, you should be serious, right? Beside. Dover took care of himself and pulled Yan Mo out of the scabbard. As soon as Yan Mo's dark blade appeared, the whole sky seemed to be dark. And the eagle eye, who had been staring at Dover's movements, suddenly shook his body, and the sharp pupils of an eagle expanded by a few points in an instant. 683. This is, Hawkeye's eyes were staring at him, and the one drawn by Dover looked like a magic knife from hell. Through the unique shape and style of the knife, the eagle eyes immediately recognized that the knife in Dover's hand is the famous sword of the big sharp knife 21 workers. But the single-room demon was not enough to make Hawkeye too shocked. It is really difficult for Hawkeye to remain calm anymore. It is that Yan Mo turned into a black knife. As the world's #1 swordsman, Hawkeye knows this world, and there are only a handful of famous swords that can be turned into black swords. Among them, there is no Yan Mo. Then, there is only one reason why the demon turned into a black sword. That is, the new owner of Yanmo in front of him, Doflamingo. Call. Hawkeye slowly evacuated the shock from his heart. Only then did he think that Dover would use the sword to deal with him as arrogant thoughts, but there was no more. An existence that can turn a famous swordsman into a black sword, even if he is not a full-time swordsman, his swordsmanship must not be underestimated. Hawkeye was holding a black sword in the night, and the extremely long blade with a chaotic blade and heavy T-shaped, which was unique in the world, left a slender crack on the surface as soon as it touched the ground. Hawkeye said in a deep voice, "Black sword Yanmo, it's really unexpected to see this knife. But since it has become a black sword, then the ranking should also be changed. The black sword, Yanmo, will no longer belong to the ranks of the 21st knife, but will become the 13th supreme knife. This is the recognition from the world's strongest swordsman. From then on, the supreme sharp knife, which is rarer than devil fruit, will be added with one more, and it will become the 13th supreme sharp knife." Stussy's delicate body trembled slightly, and the well-informed woman naturally knew the meaning of the black knife. Especially from Yinyan's evaluation of Yanmo, Stussy couldn't help but admire it. She looked at the stalwart figure of the man in front of her with beautiful eyes shining infinitely. What if this man is not a swordsman? What if you were facing the world's largest swordsman? But Master Joker. Stussy even couldn't help thinking, there is probably nothing in this world that Master Joker can't do. The 13th supreme sharp knife. Dover heard Hawkeye's evaluation and said with a faint smile, "If it can't beat your black sword knight, it will be nothing more than a scrap of copper and iron, and the ranking has no meaning at all." The extremely plain words contain a domineering spirit. Yanmo seemed to understand the master's words, and trembling suddenly, the black color of the sword body became deeper and silent, and even a wisp of black mist entangled it. Buzzing. At the same time, on the opposite side, the black sword knight in Eagle Eye's hand also shook his face, and let out a sword sound that was not to be outdone. The black knife is alive. The next collision was not only a confrontation between the two masters, but also a confrontation between two rare black knives in the world. Between the black knives, there must be a higher one. Feeling the heart conveyed by the knight in the hand, even if it is the always calm and indifferent Eagle Eye, the heart can't help but a touch of warfare at this time. Hawkeye has been in the position of the world's strongest swordsman, and has stood for too long. In fact, he has always longed for someone to beat himself in kendo. So, Hawkeye never refuses anyone's challenge, but in the past few decades, there has not been a challenger who can make Hawkeye 1/10 the strength. Hawkeye often went to fight the Four Emperor's red hair, but the red hair broke his arm in East Blue. Hawkeye had no intention of fighting against the man with a broken arm. Therefore, such a surging fighting spirit that rises from the depths of his heart, Hawkeye has not felt it for many years. Then, come on. Although Hawkeye's fighting spirit was raging, his tone was still calm. "Let me see, my black sword knight, and your black sword Yanmo, who is more powerful?" Next moment, Hawkeye's moved. He deceived him, jumped to a high place, and the black knife in his hand suddenly waved at Dover. A huge emerald green wave of swords suddenly appeared and reached Dover in the blink of an eye. So strong. Stussy was amazed. He deserves to be the world's strongest swordsman. With a random wave, he can create such a powerful force. But in Stussy's heart, there was no panic. She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the back of the man in front of her. "Do you still need to worry if you have this man?" I saw Dover stand up Yanmo and face the oncoming green sword wave. The dark fog around Yanmo suddenly increased, and it slammed the huge sword wave sent by the Eagle Eye in an instant, enveloping it. The emerald sword wave never came out again, as if it had been swallowed by the black mist. This? Hawkeye couldn't help being extremely surprised. He had never seen such a weird swordsmanship. But before he could think too much, Dover's voice came from the opposite side. "It's my turn." I saw that Dover also gently waved the middle demon and absorbed his powerful Haki Yan demon. Where the pitch-black sword light passed, it seemed that even the space was torn apart, leaving an equally pitch-black crack. Not good. Hawkeye was shocked. Yanmo's attack methods were too weird and beyond common sense. Even Hawkeye was a little caught off guard. But the Eagle Eye is indeed an Eagle Eye. Even though the heart is unexpected, the movement of the hand has not slowed down by half a minute. He once again swung the black sword knight, cutting out a wave of swords. However, encountering the weird dark sword light, it seemed to have been swallowed in, and failed to stop the dark sword light's offensive. Hawkeye's expression finally changed, but he also noticed that the pitch-black sword light was partially offset by his own sword wave. Hawkeye waved several sword waves one after another, and finally wiped out the dark sword light completely. Boom. The eagle eye fell to the ground from midair. The confrontation between talents, although only a short moment, made Hawkeye feel more dangerous than ever. Even in the face of the red hair of the four emperors, he has never felt this way. That man is beyond his imagination. That black knife was weird beyond his expectations. Hawkeye's pair of light yellow sharp and circling pupils dignified the man standing on the opposite side, and said slowly and solemnly. Yan Mo, who claims to be able to conquer hell, fell into your hands. It really looks more and more like a devil's blade, Doflamingo. Black sword Yan Mo. The whole body was wrapped in black mist, and the blade was shining with the cold luster of Lang Yui, as if it came from hell. Not long ago, Dover had cut out a bright galaxy hanging across the night sky on the roof of Wano-kuni. At that time, the sword light emitted by Yan Mo was dazzling silver. But at this moment, under Dover's deeper and thicker Haki's immersion, it seems that the demon can really lead to the netherworld, and the aura it exudes has become more and more dark and dark. Hawkeye called it more and more like a devil's blade, but it was extraordinarily appropriate. Devil's blade, a good name. Dover smiled lightly and looked at Hawkeye. However, you didn't use your real strength either. Just forget about the trick to tease children just now. Although Hawkeye's slash just now was quite powerful, it was absolutely difficult for ordinary people to resist. But for Dover, it's just a child's trick. And Dover knew that the slash that Hawkeye had just swung was a far cry from the sword wave that he swung towards Whitebeard in the top war. I wanted to test it a little bit, but now it seems that it is unnecessary. Hawkeye gathered his thoughts. The black coat he wore, without wind, revealed a strong and muscular upper body. Hawkeye held the black sword in his right hand, and the sword was slightly slanted. Buzz. The sword intent soared into the sky, and an aura that was dozens or hundreds of times stronger than before, suddenly started from Hawkeye. The earth under his feet was actually cut into scars by the fierce sword intent rippling in the air. At this moment, Hawkeye is like a whole person, transformed into a peerless sword. Nothing but nothing. Unstoppable. With its terrifying pupils that are like goshawks, I am afraid that no matter how strong it is, the eagle eyes at this moment will feel chills. Buddha ha ha ha. Seeing Hawkeye finally showed the strongest posture, Dover laughed lowly, his eyes flashing with a darker color than Yan Mo. This is like a little talk, Hawkeye, let me see, your world's strongest kendo. How strong is Hawkeye? In fact, Dover is also very curious about this question. Hawkeye is the only person in Shicibukai who has no influence or subordinates. With his own powerful strength alone, Marine was jealous, and he was busy inviting him to join 7 warlords of the sea. Hawkeye has played against 4 emperors red hair several times, but the outcome is unknown. In the war at the top, as soon as he appeared, he attracted the attention of Akainu, Kizaru and other admiral. There is no doubt that the strength of Hawkeye is unfathomable. Even 4 emperors admiral dare not wait to take it lightly. Confronting such a strong man, even Dover, it has been long lost, showing a hint of eagerness to try. Huh. Good. Hearing Dover's words, the eagle-eyed pupils flashed with sharp lights, and the corners of his mouth also evoked. I wanted to use this trick to test the world's strongest Whitebeard. Today, it is going to be used on you in advance. You have to be careful, Doflamingo. The next moment, Hawkeye raised it high with one hand, the black sword knife that was several meters long. The special blade of the chaotic, heavy-flowered T-shaped, pointed at the sky, as if it was about to poke a hole in the sky. Immediately afterwards, He Dao Yi drew an arc at an incredible speed, slashing down. Buzzing. Indescribable, compared to the monstrous slash that was completely incomparable in terms of size, speed, and power, he brazenly rushed out. Under the incomparable slash, everything that stood in front of him was wiped out in an instant. The earth left a deep and bottomless ditch, and the green sword light is even more dazzling, even the sun's sunlight is covered at this time. In the whole world, it seems that there is only the slash from the eagle eye, the huge slash that is overwhelmed with thorns and thorns. It is exactly the same as the war on the top of the original book in the slash to the 4 emperors Whitebeard. Such a slash is really scary. The green sword glow was also printed in Stussy's beautiful eyes. Her petite and exquisite body turned around in place, and Sakura's little mouth smiled at Dover. Master Joker, you have to be careful. People have to hide far away. Immediately, Stussy's beautiful little feet in white socks were light as a weightless body, and then retreated to the distance. Stussy knew very well that she was not able to intervene in the next battle. Buddha Xiao, good come. Dover jumped and stood in the air. Holding a black sword, Yan Mo, with the strong haki surging on his body and spleen, the world was absorbed by Yan Mo. Surrounded by the black mist that seemed to come from the nether hell, Dover looked like a demon god. Zzz. Because Yan Mo had absorbed too much haki, he also seemed to feel the approach of the black sword attack on the opposite side. Not long after being promoted to Black Blade, did you want to challenge that position of supremacy? Dover looked at Yan Mo's abnormal state and smiled slightly. However, this is a little bit qualified to be my saber. Next moment, Dover waved Yan Mo. The black mist that filled the surroundings was suddenly absorbed by Yan Mo. And with Dover's sword swing, from the tip of the pavilion demon's sword, a vast and incomparable pitch-black sword glow rushed out. The pitch-black sword glow is like a huge black curtain, covering the sky and covering the sky. The moment it appeared, the world dimmed. Whether it was the light of the sun or the dazzling green slash of the eagle eye, it seemed to be eclipsed at this moment. And when the black curtain collided with the slash of the eagle eye, surprisingly, there was no sound at all. I can only see that the green sword wave of the eagle eye, silently disintegrating, and even the stalemate has not been able to stand for a moment, and it is annihilated in the darkness of the sky. This Hawkeye didn't expect it at all. He has already exerted a considerable part of his slash, and the result will be like this. Soon. The black curtain swallowed all the slashes of the eagle eye, and under the curtain, the vegetation, soil and rock on the island were all melted away. What a Yan Mo! What a Doflamingo! Hawkeye took a deep breath, and had to retreat. While retreating, Hawkeye continued to slap huge slashes like just now. It took more than 10 full swings before finally offsetting the overwhelming black curtain. The sun's rays finally set down at this time. When I saw the small island under my feet, it looked like an eagle eye at this moment, and I couldn't help but take a breath. Original. Most of the small island that was covered by the black curtain just disappeared out of thin air. Not even a trace of broken pieces was left. It's like being erased by some kind of mighty force. Only the remaining half is in jeopardy. What kind of kendo is this? Swallow it? Annihilate it? Or is it pure darkness? Even Eagle Eye, as the world's largest swordsman, can't understand Dover's kendo. No matter what kind of kendo, my kendo is never forward, the sword is supreme. Although unable to understand the opponent's kendo, Hawkeye's eyes were still extremely firm. He is the world's strongest swordsman and possesses the world's strongest black sword. In the sword-to-sword competition, he will never lose. I saw Hawkeye slam on the ground, his thin iron body, like a sharp sword out of its sheath, rushing towards Dover's location very quickly. Hawkeye is not a fool. On the contrary, he is always calm and composed no matter what scene he encounters. He is both wise and insightful and extremely keen. 2 consecutive long-range slashes were consumed by the opponent's strange pitch-black sword light, so Hawkeye would naturally no longer choose long-range attack tactics. He wants to fight in close combat and compete with the opponent in the direct collision of swords and swords. Dover looked at Wei Mi and saw the purpose of Hawkeye. To be honest, only on the skills of swordsmanship, Dover is indeed inferior to Hawkeye, who has been honed in swordsmanship for decades. However, Dover also did what Dover did. When the Eagle Eye attacked, Dover just gently stabbed the pavilion demon, and spotted it somewhere on the night of the Black Blade. Hawkeye was shocked. Here is where his weakness lies in this sword attack. Of course, the so-called weaknesses are only relative to the real strong. For ordinary people, the weaknesses of the Eagle Eye sword are also fatal. But being discovered by a strong man of Dover's level is not good. Sure enough, the black sword knight that Hawkeye had originally intended to win, deviated from the original trajectory, and flew out to the side together with his body. Dover's mouth twitched at this moment, and once again cut out a dark sword light. Not good. Hawkeye forcibly reversed the forward inertia of his body, blocking He Dao Yi in front of him. Boom. Hawkeye only felt a strong force, coming from the sword. His body flew out involuntarily. Flew straight out for hundreds of meters before stopping. Ha ha. Hawkeye could not help but breathe heavily, which is extremely rare in his career as a great swordsman. But facing that man, he was a little tired before he had a few tricks. After all, Hawkeye has spent a lot of effort in order to kill the huge black curtain just now. It's observation Hawkeye, Hawkeye said in a deep voice against the man standing in the air. As a swordsman, Hawkeye is also good at seeing and hearing Hawkeye. But just now, his observation Hawkeye failed, and the opponent could see the weakness of his sword skills at a glance. Obviously, the other party's observation Hawkeye is better than yourself. Dover smiled faintly. Hawkeye was right. He did use Hawkeye's sights and smells to attack the weaknesses with simple and complicated, simple and straightforward, to break Hawkeye's superb swordsmanship. Seeing that Dover didn't deny it, Hawkeye couldn't help but feel a little complicated. In the past, he used such a simple and neat way to deal with those who challenged him. Unexpectedly, one day, someone would use the same method to deal with himself, but he has no way. The so-called Dao to Jhin is the same for Kendo. When a person's level has reached a certain level, no amount of fancy skills will be superfluous. A 1/4 the force broke the 10,000 magic, the 4 or 2 strokes 1,000 caddies. This is the return to the basics of Kendo. It is the suppression of absolute strength. Faced with such a situation, Hawkeye is also quite a headache. Long-range slash. The opponent's weird pitch-black swordlight makes his previous unfavorable slash without any effect at all. Compete with swordsmanship at close range. The opponent's vision is higher than your own, and it is difficult to use it if you have all kinds of exquisite swordsmanship. Do you want to go all out? Hawkeye couldn't help thinking in secret. He was on the throne of the strongest swordsman, and after so many years, naturally there were still some tricks that he did not use. But Hawkeye had an inexplicable feeling that even if he used all his strength and the strongest swordsmanship, he might not be able to defeat that man. The intuition of the swordsman is very accurate, especially the great swordsman like Qiwuhai, will not give birth to such an idea for no reason. Hawkeye stared deeply at Dover in the air, and the dark fruit on the ladder. After a long time, he sighed and inserted He Dao Yi back into the scabbard behind him. He Dao Yi's ding sound seemed to be an unwilling wailing. Hawkeye was silent, and finally, he said, I am defeated. Your swordsmanship is not as good as mine, but on the way of swordsmanship, you have reached Jhin. If you can't compete with you in other ways, I will never be your opponent. The world's strongest swordsman, the strongest Kendo Qiwuhai, directly admitted his failure. If it spreads out, I am afraid it will cause an uproar in the whole world. Dover was also quite surprised, but immediately took a higher look at Hawkeye. Win without arrogance, defeat without being discouraged, and even dare to speak out about your failures. This is the true mentality of a strong man. After acknowledging his failure, Hawkeye suddenly said again, Dark fruit belongs to you. But, can you tell me, what did you mean by the unprecedented changes in the world in the surging waves of the times at the beginning, Heavenly Yaksha, Joker?